the first Sunday I'm back in January, is set up with question and answers. You have questions, I might have some answers, and it's a time where anything goes in terms of question asking. It's not the time to tell your story. It's, you laser the question so I can do the talking. And in classes, you guys get to do the talking, but on Sunday mornings, it's me. But so I trust you have been contemplating, ruminating, thinking about any thoughts that might have some searching spiritual significance to them. And this is the opportunity to ask it, and I will share with you some of the perspectives from the religious science side of seeing things. So I don't know if we're going to have a mic runner here at the first service or not. Matt, we're going to do the mic, or we just, we are, okay. So anybody have a question for me? Yes, we'll start here. John.
Can you explain grace?
Can I? Grace.
And also, can you refer to salvation in there somewhere?
Okay, grace and salvation. So grace is one of my favorite vibes, if you would. Grace, it's like a breath. It is a wind of God that comes in. Grace is that divine touch. It is that revelation. It is that spot where there's just a sense of, it's okay. It's going to be okay. It is the experience for me of God in that moment. And when I talk about the grace of God showing up, is that when my will and my way and my expectations and the things that I want all of a sudden just give space so the emergence of the greater yet to be can begin to have that space. Grace for me brings a sense of peace, brings a sense of calm, it brings a sense of well-being. For me, grace is almost that irrefutable experience. It's the experience of the presence where all otherness just dissolves, and I know all is well because the presence is there. And I don't need to tell the presence what to do. That divine presence brings with it a sense of knowing it's all handled, at least for this moment. And it's gentle. I find that you can't force grace to show up, but rather I can prepare myself for grace to show up. It's the analogy of like a butterfly. You can't chase the butterfly, but you can allow it to land on your hand. Grace can find its expression. It's not something we can force, but we can prepare the space. We can make ourselves available. I can let go of my angst or my anxiety or what it is I want and just become available for that greater yet to be to express itself. So for me, grace is an experience, and it's difficult to delineate or articulate because it truly is an experience, but it's an experience where all becomes well because the fragrance of the divine has filled that space. And the salvation, what's interesting for me, and also Ernest Holmes, who's the founder of religious science, is that we don't really need to be saved. The truth of our being is spirit. And what we want to do is reveal the truth of who we are. And it's in this revelation all the otherness begins to give way. So the sense of salvation is there's nothing I need to be saved from other than myself. And as I allow that greater emergence of that presence of God to have my life, anything unlike it begins to fade away and fall away. So yes, I can be caught up in a destructive pattern. I can be caught up in a negative way of being, an addictive personalities or patterns. And so I can begin to have the shift in my life as soon as I begin to recognize my greater self than the experience that I'm caught in. And so I can be saved in a sense from that, but the truth is there's really nothing I need to be saved from other than myself. And so it's my surrender of the poor patterns that allow myself to begin to be on a more constructive, affirmative life direction in my life. And so we all at any moment can shift our experience from a direction that is not as empowering to one that is more divine revelational. So there you go. So thank you for that. Yeah. Oh, I answered it. Not my answer. My goodness. Okay. That's it. Yeah, Jane. Hello, Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Good to see you here.
How do you replenish or add to your spiritual bank?
My spiritual what?
Bank.
Bank. Oh,
Bank
yeah.
account.
How do you do that? Well, I'll tell you one thing you're doing really well, I can tell, is showing up here on Sundays. What you do is you just keep stepping into those spots that you find replenishing, uplifting, and revitalizing. So in this world where, let's say, there's a lot of opportunities to be caught up in concern, negativity, all the images that are continuously bombarded, weigh heavy on consciousness. And we believe in a collective consciousness. And so the more individuals that are looking at that spiral down tend to go there and pull people into that vortex with them. So what is so valuable, I believe, is that we as individuals do our part to replenish, restock, renew, refresh that bank account, if you would, that spiritual bank account, so we can be contributors to the collective consciousness that are in an affirmative way and start tipping the scale in an affirmative way. So I want to say thank you for asking how to do that, because it's invaluable that humanity needs us at this time. We have been born for a time such as this, to be those that know that we can replenish that stock when we're down. And when you do that through your spiritual reading, we do that through our spiritual contemplation. We do that by starting our day with reading something that is uplifting as opposed to something that is anxiety invoking. We do that through our meditations. The great way to start the day is putting yourself on the track of that which you want to experience. Not going out and taking a look at the numbers that are going to pull things down, but rather, what can I do if I'm dealing with an inexhaustible, infinite source, then what I want to do is become conscious of that. If we truly believe that spirit is infinite, then I have got to take the time to look at that, to feel that, and to discover its relevance within my life and within my world. And so I do that with taking the classes, coming to our new Wednesday night service, signing up for the Tuesday self-mastery class. We do that by Sunday mornings being here. If you're watching podcasts, are you watching podcasts that are instilling fear? This is the facts and this is the science. Or am I looking at podcasts that inspire the soul and the spirit, and facts and science that are uplifting as opposed to pulling you down and not giving your power away? The part that you replenish that bank account is you take your power back. And if you find yourself in a very depleting environment that is parasitical in its energy, vampire zapping kind of stuff, it becomes my responsibility to recognize that if I'm committed to this kind of environment, I need to do something that will offset that. So when I step into a heavy kind of space, that it doesn't just compound me and take me deeper into a hole, but rather I'm coming in with a lightness, and so the stuff flows off me like Teflon, that whatever is getting thrown my way, it can't stick, because my bank account is filled with the presence of God, with the light, with the abundance, and all that attracts. And that attracts abundant, producing, exponentially expanding greater good if I am consciously starting my day by being positive, by stopping in the middle of the day to regenerate at the noonday meditation. You can do that on your phone at Seaside. It just goes off at noon, boom, and there you go. At night, do you end your day with a sense of gratitude? So you get be the one who invites the expansion into that spiritual bank account, and then it reciprocates in your life with abundance, affluence, and wealth, and health, and well-being, and wholeness, and friendships, and creativity, and newness, because you can walk through the valley of the shadow of death and fear no evil, because you are just filled with that light and that life. And so some people walk through these times with joy, others will walk through them with trepidation. What's the deciding factor? It is the individual, and it's that individual who continues to fill that spiritual bank account by consciously looking at all the spiritual opportunities and being that light in the world that needs it so much. So, hope that helps. All right. Another question? Yes.
Can you explain the different or the relationship between meditation and prayer?
Yes. What is the difference between meditation and prayer? And the two very distinctive differences, so both very important for self-mastery for sure. The meditation is a receptive, and the prayer is more of, you've got the yin and the yang, or the yang, it is the spoken, it is the direction given to consciousness. And so the meditation is allowing yourself to become available to the presence showing up with whatever particular pieces that are relevant and necessary for the individual who's chosen to meditate. And in the West, oftentimes we'll meditate on certain things and concepts, but the Eastern meditation I find interesting is they just will sit down without a purpose, just to be available, to be in that space of peace, that space of receptivity. And it's in that comes the renewal, the replenishment, and the divine download in the way that is appropriate for the one who is sitting there. It is going without expectations. It is going with the sense of being receptive to the presence, that all-knowing infinite expression of spirit, and that is ineffable, so it can't really be described, but as I allow myself to just be available, I can experience that something that's even beyond words. And when you get up, there's a sense of being replenished, renewed, energized, and yet I can't really tell you what happened, but I feel better. Prayer, extremely valuable. It is giving conscious direction. And we believe in affirmative prayer. So our style of prayer is quite different than some of the traditional prayers, because prayer for a lot of individuals are praying to something outside of themselves. Hey, come bail me out of this. A Santa Claus kind of God. Come on, God, deliver. Our style of prayer is entirely different in the sense that we believe that Spirit is in and through all things. Spirit is infinite, which means you're that. You're not all of that, but if it's infinite, I am of that. And so what we like to do is come into a greater alignment with that expression of Spirit that is expressing as us, and to be able to speak the words of that which we're looking at creating in our life. And what we want to do is come from the place of those God qualities showing up in our life. And some of the greatest prayers are more of listening than it is speaking. But as you begin to hear that highest and best for whatever the situation may be we're looking at, I begin to be able to articulate that. And we send that forth into the law, the cause and effect, the creative principle, which is really the crux of creation, is cause and effect, the law that responds, the mental equivalent, the law of correspondence. We're using that at a conscious level with our prayer. So with prayer, we're more consciously speaking the intention, where the meditation is more receptive. So one is intentional, the other is receptive. So does that help? Good. Thank you. Hey, John.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
What is the meaning, or how do you explain karma?
Karma.
There's so many different expressions of that. I'd
Yeah.
like to hear your version of that.
Okay. So karma, in a sense, is cause and effect. What goes around comes around. But what I find is a little different is that we're not bound by karma. At some point we get to step off that karmic wheel. Otherwise you're going to be on that wheel for eternity. I got this set in motion, and it's my karma. I'm going to live this for how long? Well, the beauty of religious science is that it teaches that you can step off that karmic wheel at any particular time. So yes, that which you cast upon the waters is what comes back to you. It's a good thing, you keep enjoying it. It's not so good thing, you need to step away from that. And so as soon as one is able to raise their consciousness, or another word for awareness, once we're able to raise our awareness to something greater than what has been operating within our life, we can step free from that particular experience. So yes, you have what comes back to you is the natural, inevitable outcome of the law of cause and effect. I have cast this is my karmic experience, and some people believe they've got to live it for lifetimes, and bless their heart. we're here to say that any moment you can step up to a new meme, a new vibration, dial into a new frequency, learn, grow, deal with, be responsible for whatever frequency you were operating on. But at any time, you can step into a new pattern of being and a new level of self-expression. So if you had done something and you're living that debt for quite some time, at some moment you can say, enough's enough. I've lived it, I've experienced it, I've learned from it, I've grown from it, and I am done with this struggle or this sickness or this difficulty or this person or this relationship or whatever that pattern is. But you got to deal with it. You've got to move beyond that. And I come back to saying it's your choice at any time in which you can, which is the beauty of our philosophy. You know, it's not destiny, it's not kismet, you're not stuck. You know, at any moment you are free to choose anew and again. And that is the beauty and the freedom of our philosophy, because our philosophy's big crux is one of freedom. So, absolutely. Hey, yes.
Hi.
Hello.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
Okay.
I'm following up on that question.
Okay.
Because one thing I often find, you know, when you're in the religious pursuits is you get different philosophies and then you get a little bit of spiritual confusion comparing Eastern and Western. So on what you just answered about karma, in my experience, at one point in my life, you know, I felt I wasn't in control of the energy that was working through me. Something beyond what I could explain, you could call it mystical, you could call it supernatural, pushed me into a whole new way of being and created what I would call a dark night of the soul. Is that something that you can address? You talked about being in control, you know, having good spiritual practices, watching your vibration. But there have been times in my life, or at least, you know, one extreme time in my life, I didn't feel completely in control, and I had to go with the flow of what was being given to me. Mm-hmm. Could you describe that mystical or supernatural or those kinds of elements?
Sure, absolutely. And so I think the ultimate is to be able to let go and surrender to the infinite intelligence and to be that vehicle through which Spirit expresses. It is walking, you know, this world as a divine emanation, and that would be great. So any situation I come into, the highest spiritual expression operates there, and my littleness is out of the way, and that would be a great place to be. We don't tend to operate in that particular realm all the time, though that's what we're working towards, is to be able to have Spirit guide our every action and decision and all that. And so when Spirit takes over, and the mystical is such a conscious union with the divine, that is absolutely beautiful. So that's good. Now, you also mentioned in there about the dark night of the soul. That tends to be one of the experiences that happens that help us sometimes get out of that karmic pattern that is so deep, that we're so entrenched in. It is so horrible that life is just, everything is almost like numb. You can't experience, you can't hear it. People don't get the depth of the pain that you're in, the darkness, the dark night of the soul. It takes some time to move through a real dark night of the soul. I have people say, I had a dark night of the soul over the weekend. Well, you maybe had a dark experience, but the dark night of the soul is a prolonged something that your spirit goes in and gets stuck in for a period of time. It's like you're underneath the water and you're just moving slowly, and people can see you talking, but you're functioning, but you're not there with the joy of life. And when you come out somewhere different than you went in. And most people come out, but not all the time. There's some people will just get stuck and not do that. St. John of the Cross, his classic Dark Night of the Soul, his book was written, talking about the dark night of the soul. But it is part of the soul's growth and the evolution. And it's when sometimes you can't seem to direct your life out of that. It is out of your hands and it is out of your control. And the healing that takes place in those times is like an alchemy. And it doesn't happen on demand, and it doesn't happen on call. And so with the dark night of the soul, you've just got to continue to go back, try to refill that that spiritual bank account. You've got to try to do your spiritual practices. But what I've discovered with the dark night of the soul is you don't feel like meditating. You don't feel like praying, and you want to, but the spirit isn't there. The words may come, but it's just something isn't connecting. And with the dark night of the soul, you've got to keep moving forward, or you just hole up and allow it to pass. I mean, there's not necessarily a right way, but it is spirit that will eventually bring you out of that. And that is the time in which you've just got to know you have a foundation of spirituality. It doesn't seem to be working. The friends don't seem to be understanding. You just don't seem to be working it. And it's in those kind of moments that something will eventually shift. And you've got to have the faith. You've got to continue to trust and recognize it's painful and it's long and it's sore and it's dark. And this too shall pass. It often happens with the loss of a dear beloved in your life, that you find yourself in a darker pattern and life doesn't seem to have the light and the joy. And part of life is there's the ups and there's the downs, and there's the ups and there's these downs. And so we were talking about the mystical experience. It'd be nice to stay on that elevated spot, but we don't usually stay there. We come back into this world. We've got to come back down from the mountaintop. Martin Luther King talked about, been to the mountaintop, and I've seen. But he has to come back to this world. The mystics eventually have to come back to this world. And this is what you get to do, is to share your light, your love, your revelations. You can't necessarily live on that mountaintop or from that mountaintop, but you can live from what you have seen. You got that difference? You can't necessarily stay on the mountaintop if you want to be in this world. You've got to come back into this world, but you can live from what it is you've seen, from what it is you've known, that kind of love, that kind of ease, that kind of grace, that kind of sense of remembering is what can activate you. And so when you do your spiritual work, you begin to build the bank account. So when you get those dark nights, you're able to fall back upon that remembrance as opposed to just being stuck and lost in the pit. So it's great to surrender and have Spirit take over your life. That's the ultimate. That's what we're going for. And as we do this thing called life, it gives us a lot of opportunities to call that forth in our world. So thanks. Yes, last one right here.
That dark place.
Okay, how do you support a loved one who gets into that dark
Stuck
place?
regularly in that dark place.
One of I find the best things to do is to be able to see the highest and best, and not see them as they are seeing themselves. And sometimes loved ones, we see so much for them than they are able to see for themselves, and that's their choice, and that's their pattern. And so as a mom can see the greatness of her child at an early age, as people grow and mature, they still have that greatness in them. And as a loving individual, you get to see that. And it's important not to submit yourself to being burned by an individual who is toxic in their kind of self-expression as well. So sometimes to see the best for somebody, it has to be done at a distance. And to know that they are the Christ expression, that they are the light of the world, that they are truly loved, and that if they are caught in darkness or in addictions or a negative spiral, you can offer light, a hand, but you don't want to go into the difference between empathy and sympathy. Sympathy is jumping into the quicksand with somebody, and it doesn't do anybody any good for that. But the empathy is, hey, here's a rope, here's a way out. I see you. You can walk right here on the path with me, and you can continue to do that. The challenge is when it's repetitive over time, it's like, go ahead, paddle, struggle. If that's what you want to do, I'll just continue to love you and know that you are a child of the infinite with infinite possibilities, and it doesn't have to be your reality. And holding that vibration from a distance, sometimes something clicks, and sometimes, but you cannot change another person as much as you want to. So in our prayer work, in our spiritual work, the one that we're always working on is ourselves, and not another person. So within me, I want to continue to see my brother, if it were him, in a way that is beautiful and loving, and I know that I can't continue to submit myself to any further abuse, but I can continue to love at a distance. So. All right. There we go. Hey, that's so fun. So I want to tell you, the second service will be different because I don't know the questions that are coming out. But it's always fun. It's just to give you a chance to get those going on. Yeah, come on out, Lisa, because you got another song for us, right? Yeah. Well, let us